In the land between the rivers, where the baobab trees stand like ancient gods with their roots reaching toward heaven, and the red earth remembers every secret ever buried in it.
His name was Kofi. He was not yet a warrior.
He was 8 years old, and he smelled of mango and red dust, and he laughed the way only children laugh.
But there were signs. The first sign came on a Tuesday, when Kofi fell from the tallest mango tree at the edge of the compound. He fell the way a stone falls fast, without mercy, without grace. Every child watching closed their eyes. When of them not a scratch on his skin, not a single drop of blood.
The second sign came in the tall grass behind the village. A cobra, ancient and thick as a man's forearm, reared back and spread its hood. It looked at the boy looked back. And then the snake slowly, deliberately lowered its head and moved away, as though it had received instructions from somewhere else. Third sign was the quietest. In every game, in every rough play, the other boys bled. Small cuts, scraped knees, split lips.
Kofi played among them, harder than most, and his skin stayed clean.
His mother Amma watched all three signs. She did not gasp. She did not celebrate. She watched with the careful face of a woman who is counting something. And when she had counted enough, she made a decision. There is a forest at the eastern edge of the village that the people do not discuss in daylight. Not because they have forgotten it, because some things are kept alive by silence. The trees there grow sideways, not bent by wind, but turned, as though they long ago decided that vertical was not for them. The birds there do not sing. They perch and they watch with the patience of things that have seen many human beings come and go and have learned not to be impressed. The ground there is soft in places it should not be soft.
Amma went there alone. At midnight, she carried nothing but a clay pot of palm wine, and the name of her son pressed like a stone against her heart. She walked without stopping, without hesitating, without looking back.
She walked because her son was in the world unprotected, and a mother who knows that cannot sleep, cannot sit, cannot wait. She walked until she found them.
There were 3 of them, old beyond counting, seated in the clearing as though they had always been there, as though the forest had grown up around them, not the other way around. Their eyes were white as river stone. Their things were long than long speaking. They spoke among themselves in a language older than the village, older than the river, older than the name of any King Amma had ever heard.
Your son will be the greatest warrior this land has ever seen. Men will call him unkillable. Songs will carry his name across rivers and mountains and into the mouths of people who will never meet him. His enemies will flee before he raises his hand.
Amma's heart lifted, and then the old woman continued. But greatness is a fire, mother, and fire needs fuel. What lives inside your son is powerful, but it is naked. It has no armor. And without armor, even the greatest flame can be blown out by the right wind.
Then give him armor. The witches looked at one another, a look that carried years inside it. It will cost you. Name it.
They handed her a clay pot, small, dark as old earth, sealed at the top with black wax. It was warm to the touch, warm the way a living thing is warm, as though something breathed quietly inside it.
Hang this pot at the highest point of your ceiling. Never let it touch the ground, not for cleaning, not for moving, not for any reason a living person can imagine.
And the cost?
The eldest witch smiled. It was not a warm smile.
You already paid it. You came here alone, in the dark, for your child and not for yourself. The love that walked you through this forest tonight, that is what feeds the pot. That is what will feed him.
Amma walked home through the dark, holding the pot against her chest. She did not look back once.
She returned before dawn. The village was still. Even the dogs were quiet. Kofi slept on his mat, his small chest rising and falling with absolute peace of a child who does not yet know what the world holds for him. His hands were open at his sides.
Then she worked.
She nailed the pot to the highest rafter herself, standing on a wooden stool, the dark, with the focused calm of a woman who has already made her decision and does not need to make it again.
When it was done, she climbed down from the stool and stood beneath it and looked up. The pot hung there, still and warm, barely visible in the darkness, above her sleeping son. And Kofi grew. He grew not knowing what hung above him.
He grew not knowing what his mother had walked through in the dark. He grew the way protected children always grew, assuming the safety is simply the nature of the world. It is not. It never is. Someone put it there. By the time Kofi was 20, he was not the biggest man in the village. He was not the loudest. He did not pound his chest or tell stories of himself over palm wine. But something about him made men step aside. Something about the year who moved. The led to the punctual, unhurried measuring. Like a lion that has already decided nothing in its immediate vicinity is worth the energy.
When the wars came, and in those days the wars always came, Kofi was among the first called. What happened on those battlefields became the kind of story that grows louder every time it is told.
They shot him with arrows, 12 in one battle alone. The men who were there would swear to this until their dying day. 12 arrows. He pulled them from his body the way a man pulls thorns from his sandal, mildly irritated, barely interrupted. An enemy commander hurled a spear with enough force to pierce a baobab tree. It struck Kofi in the chest. It fell to the ground, bent.
In the third war, they cornered him at the Vasveva, who looked down at the water. He looked back at the soldiers. He jumped. He walked out of the river downstream before nightfall and rejoined his men.
The battle is won! Your defeat is complete! This is not over. We will rise again. Show yourselves, cowards! That man is not a man. We have shot him, we have stabbed him, we have thrown him from a cliff. He always comes back.
The word reached a rival king. And the king stopped sleeping.
The king had lost 3 battles. 3, each one more expensive than the last. In soldiers, in weapons, in the particular pride that kings cannot easily replace. His generals sat around the war table whopping with the Kocheska committed. Maps covered the table. Plans had been drawn and crossed out and redrawn. Larger armies, faster horses, poison in the water supply. None of it had touched Kofi.
Finally, when pride had been completely exhausted, the king summoned his oldest advisor, the one he kept for moments exactly like this.
Advisor, I need your counsel.
I am here, my king. You are fighting this the wrong way, my king.
Then tell me the right way.
You cannot kill what does not fear death.
And how do we find his door? Not with what is in this room.
The king understood. He sent for Abena.
Her name was Abena. She arrived in the village as a trader's daughter, an easy story to believe. Because she was easy to believe in everything. She had a face that made people feel they had known her in some other season of their life. Her smile arrived slowly and felt completely genuine. Her eyes were warm and large and paid full attention to whoever was speaking. She was, in every visible way, exactly what she appeared to be. She set up at the market on a Thursday morning. She did not ask about Kofi, she did not look for him. She simply existed in the market, bright and unhurried, the way certain flowers end. The yam prices here are different from last week.
You come to the market to study yam prices?
I come to the market.
And you notice the yam prices?
I notice things. She laughed. Not the careful laugh of someone performing amusement out of fear or respect. She laughed like he had actually caught her off guard, like he had said something that surprised her. 4 moons pass like 4 pages of a book that you read too quickly because you do not want it to end.
Kofi brought her things without being asked. Fruit from the northern traders. Cloth dyed deep green and burnt orange. Beaded bracelets he had bargained for hard, seriously, the way he bargained for nothing else and would never in his life admit to bargaining for.
They sat together in the evenings, the sky doing what the African evening sky does, performing its colors without apology, without audience, simply because it can. And Kofi talked. He talked about battle. About the particular loneliness of being the man who always survives. About watching men fall around him and how, each time he walked away from unmarked, there was a weight to it that no one ever named.
Abena listened to all of it. And somewhere in the 4th moon, in the space between listening and filing, something happened that she had not planned for. She began to mean it, but the message was already overdue. And a soldier with an overdue message has only one choice.
Will you stay with me?
I worry about you sometimes. When you are away, in battle, how is it that you come home when others don't?
I am protected.
By what?
A pause. And then she laughed softly.
Forgive me. I am sorry.
The Poshinga Pohiwar de Passas.
Big the body and the mother by the quest.
Ask what you wish. But she did not ask again that night. She waited.
2 weeks later, they lay on open ground beneath a sky so full of stars it seemed almost unreasonable, as though the night had decided to make an effort. A baobab stood on the horizon, dark and enormous and patient.
They had talked for hours about everything and nothing. She had made him laugh twice, genuinely, fully, the laugh of a man who has forgotten, briefly, to be careful, and then a quiet settled between them.
Sometimes I think the protection around you is older than you. Like it was placed there by someone who loved you before you even knew you needed loving.
Kofi went still. She had touched something true without being told where to touch it. He turned to look at her in the dark. She was already looking at him, not with the calculated look of a woman extracting information.
Face. That impossible, open face. He made the decision that brave men have been making since the beginning of time. The decision that has ended more great men than any sword, any arrow, any army. He decided to trust her.
My mother went to the forest when I was 8 years old. The eastern forest. At midnight. Alone. She carried palm wine and my name and nothing else.
The witch's forest? Forest?
Yes, she went to ask who I was, what I would become. They told her and they gave her something to protect me.
What did they give her?
A clay pot. Small, dark, sealed with black wax. She hung it at the ceiling of our home, the highest rafter, with rope made from her own hair. As long as that pot hangs above the ground, no weapon made by man can kill me. That is where my protection lives. That is, in some way, where I live.
Silence. Abena looked at him for a long time, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet and she meant every word, which was the most dangerous thing that had happened to her since she arrived in this village.
Your mother must love you.
In a way I cannot even imagine.
You are safe, Kofi.
She meant it differently than he heard it. That night, after he walked her home and said goodnight and returned to his compound, she sat alone in the dark for a long time. Then she sent word to the king.
2 nights later, the king's men moved through the sleeping village like smoke, not many, not warriors, no weapons raised. Just a small, silent group with a single purpose. One house, one ceiling, one small clay pot. But the village was not without its own awareness. Amma woke. Not from sound, they had made none. Not from movement, they had not yet reached her door. She woke the way certain women wake from a shift in the air. A change in the breathing of the world around her. A trembling so slight that only the person tethered to it would feel it. She sat up in the dark.
Across the compound, Kofi woke at the same moment. He felt it first as a coldness in his chest, not in the air, in him. A thinning, a flickering, like the warmth of what had lived inside since childhood was suddenly, like the warmth that had lived inside his chest since childhood was suddenly, faintly, guttering. He did not wait to understand it. He moved.
He arrived to find a man inside his mother's house, a long pole raised toward the ceiling, toward the pot, reaching for it, with the focused intention of someone who has been told exactly what he is looking for. The fight was fast, brutal, small in the way the most important fights always are, not the grand sweep of battlefield, but close and desperate and personal.
And for the first time in his life, Kofi bled. A blade found his arm, a blade that should not have been able to touch him. Because the pot had trembled, it had shaken on its rafter. It had not fallen, but it had trembled. The men fled. Kofi stood outside his mother's door, breathing hard.
Amma came and stood before him. She looked at his arm. She looked at his face. She looked at him the way only a mother can look at a grown man, seeing simultaneously the warrior he has become, and the 8-year-old who used to fall asleep against her shoulder before dinner was finished, slowly made her not young anymore.
They found the door.
How?
Who have you been sitting with in the evenings? She was quiet for a long time. The torches around the compound flickered. The night insects resumed their work.
The question landed the way the heaviest things always land, without drama, without noise, just wait. Kofi said nothing. He did not need to.
The grief that came to him then was not the grief of betrayal, sharp and hot and looking for somewhere to go. It was more slow and more total. The grief of a man as in love as his greatest strength, and who was now learning that the same door through which love enters is the door that everything else can enter too.
if someone is patient enough and kind enough.
He sent no soldiers after Abena. He did not speak her name in anger. He simply went quiet in the way that men go quiet when something has moved deep inside them and rearranged the furniture.
The pot held you, Kofi.
Not this time, mother.
It has been holding it for 20 years. It knows how to hold you.
He looked at her, this woman, this small, iron-boned, indigo-wrapped woman who had walked into a forest at midnight for him before he was old enough to understand what that cost. He had no words for her. Some things are too large for words. You simply sit in them. And so they sat.
4 years passed. The rival king undone by the ordinary weight of his own choices. His armies depleted, his alliances crumbling, was defeated. Not by Kofi, by time, by the momentum of a man who had spent everything chasing something he was never going to catch. Abena was free.
Free of her mission, free of her king, free of everything except the thing that had happened to her in those 4 months of evenings, in all that listening, in the weight of a man's trust handed to her like something fragile and irreplaceable. She returned, alone, on foot, with nothing but herself and something in her face that had not been there before. The look of a woman who has done an irreversible thing and has chosen, rather than flee from it, to stand in front of it and let it be seen.
She stood at the entrance of the compound. She called his name.
Let her in, Kofi.
What was said between the two women, no griot has ever claimed to know. The door was closed. The compound was quiet. The pot hung where it had always hung steady.
You cannot use love as a weapon without being changed by the love.
The pot never touched the ground. Not on the night the men came with their pole and their instructions. Not in any of the years that followed, while Kofi grew old and the village grew around him and the wars eventually found other places to be. Amma kept it on the ceiling until her last breath. And on the morning she passed, the village woke to find the pot still hanging, and around the rope of braided hair that held it, a single green vine had grown in the night.
The fortification of Kofi was not in the pot. The pot was only a vessel. The fortification was in a mother who walked into a dark forest alone at midnight for a child who did not yet know he needed saving, and who hung her love at the highest point of her home so it would always be above him. So it would never, never fall.